Welcome, Irish fans, to this week's edition of the Jack Swarbrick Show. On this week's show, we will visit with Notre Dame National Championship fencing coach Kvaratskhelia, Notre Dame women's basketball associate head coach Carol Owens, and new Notre Dame men's head soccer coach Chad Riley. But first, to get things started, here is your host, Notre Dame Vice President and Director of Athletics, Jack Swarbrick. Jack, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. It's rare that I'm on a show where my name's easier to pronounce than the guest. The Gia presents his own challenge, and you're handling it very well.
Well, he's a good sport. Saw him in the studio before the show because there was an alternative pronunciation I had been given that I had practiced. I had that one down. I'm not sure I nailed it, but I might have gotten to 80 or 85%. But he says Gia is fine.
Yeah, well, the whole inflection when he says it is it sounds different no matter how accurate you and I may be. And as I said to you, I've introduced Gia a number of times now, and I've yet to even attempt the last name. Coach Gia.
You're smarter than I am. No question about that. So certainly lots of things to talk about, and let's start with a lot of news in the football area. First of all, the most recent to the taping of this show, 3 key defensive players have decided to come back. They could have gone on to attempt to get to the next level, but they're going to come back and play their final years of eligibility.
Yeah, and I think what's important for our fans to understand about that is, and Brian has talked about it, but the role we play. People often talk about how we've recruited our guys back. It's less about that than just trying to give them the information. And Brian and staff do a remarkable job. Yes, the NFL gives you the letter which says first, second round, or return to school, but that's very little information. We work very hard to get them much richer information on a host of things. So generally what we're doing is sort of helping them draw out as specifically as possible the 2 alternatives. If you stay, here's the academic schedule you'll be on, here's sort of your development as a player, here are the things we'll focus on. If you leave, here's what you have to do to still get that degree and what we might do to set up a course for you to do that. Here are the experience of other people who have left at this point in their academic and football life when you're leaving. And so the richer you can be in providing them with that information, the better decision making that's made. And why we'll never agree with all of the decisions that are made, by and large, I'm very pleased that our students look at the right factors and generally make decisions that I think make a lot of sense for them.
Now, for listeners who had not heard, we're talking about Tavon Coney, the linebacker who had the Irish in tackles, Jerry Tillery, defensive lineman Jonathan Bonner. And I think the other aspect of this that's very important, if you have chosen to come to Notre Dame to play football, obviously football is very important. But the other part of that decision is certainly the academic side. And I read an article where they went back and tracked most of the players who have left early, and unfortunately, most of them have not come back to get their degrees. It's a hard thing to do once you leave, to come back and complete your studies. So you're giving up a huge and important opportunity, because the vast majority of these folks, Jerome Bettis talks about it all the time, that he's almost embarrassed and he keeps trying to fit it into his schedule. He doesn't need to. He's a superstar. The other guys may have had a middling career, may not have even have made it, and it's a degree that would make a huge difference for them.
Yeah, although again, for some people it's the right decision, and others it's not. I can think of a number of people who have left early in recent years for whom it was absolutely the right decision.
Well, I guess I'm saying you have to make sure, though, that it's the right decision.
Yeah, and we have gotten better as a department and as a university in assisting in creating paths towards that degree. When I first got here, there was a requirement that all courses had to be taken on campus, and that is very hard to do, especially if you're in the way pro seasons
it's been an obstacle.
Now.
A lot of the guys on that list, that was one of the big obstacles.
Yeah, and so we've worked hard with great help from the academy to to figure out ways where you can, yes, some courses do have to be taken here. Others, there may be an alternative way to do it. You may be able to take it at a college in your university in your city. And so I feel much better about sort of our approach to that. There's no question that regardless of the decision, we want to try and figure out the best possible way to help a young man get his degree.
And it's my understanding that the folks involved, the ones that had put their names in, got the return to school designation from the NFL. Some young men abide by that, some don't. But I think they are telling you that it's unlikely that there's a huge payday now. And in many cases, coming back that extra year makes a huge difference at the next level.
Well, we've certainly seen that. We saw it with Zach. We saw it with Ronnie.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see it this year with Q and Mike. So there are unquestionably examples of that. In contrast, worked out great for Will Fuller,
Yes.
and that was probably the right decision for Will to make as you look back on it. So every situation is a little different. What I find a little bit challenging is a big part of the pitch that the agents make now is you want to get started now to get to your second contract, right? I mean, that's the argument. The sooner you get out, the closer you are to the second deal, which is the lucrative one. Well, of course, in the nature of pro football, a lot of people don't get to a second lucrative deal, and so you can't place too much faith in that.
Some turnover on the coaching staff. Of course, the most publicized one, Coach Elko, who did a great job his year here, going to Texas A&M, and Clark Lee being elevated to defensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's as much as we'd love to maintain complete continuity, and in fact thought we were going to get continuity year over year. It's the nature of the business today, and we understand it. What I loved in this circumstance was that we were able to have continuity within the program with Clark. He's going to do a great job. It keeps the system the same. Yeah. It keeps the terminology the same. There's a familiarity with among the athletes, both with Clark and the system. And we didn't do that for that reason. We think he's a phenomenal coach and he's going to be a great defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. But it was an added plus that we could achieve that. And then with Harry Heastan, the offensive line coach, who is returning to the NFL, as I think Brian stated so accurately in his commentary, and Harry's quote too, we knew this was coming. We didn't know when. We knew this would be the last chapter of Harry's career. That we were able to have him here for 6 years and benefit from him was great. The legacy he has created here will continue, and his fondness for this place is unabated. So again, you'd love to keep the coaching staff intact, but it's really about what are the relationships like, what kind of condition is the program in, and how do you move on. And in both cases, I have great confidence that we're going to move on very effectively.
And one of the terrific things about what Harry Heastan has left is a culture. There's no tighter unit on a football team than the offensive line. It's almost like a fraternity. And those guys, the veterans, are going to maintain the culture that has been created. I'm not saying that you won't find someone who can also maintain it, but the foundation is going to continue just from the players themselves.
Yeah. The noun I use other than fraternity is amoeba. They sort of move as a collective.
Yes, they do.
They do all across campus. In fact, and I hope I'm not betraying any secrets here, but Harry shared with me when he called out, the first calls were to Alex and Sam, and he was able to get Alex. Sam, I think, was in class at the time, or busy. But Alex said, don't worry, Coach, we've got this. We know the way. You've established it, and we're gonna continue that path. And as a program, we feel very confident about that. Not only with those two great leaders in Alex Bars and Sam, but a group of young linemen who have now had 1 or 2 years in the system that will also make it pretty seamless.
And there's another change on the coaching staff, but in title. He is still here. He has been here with Brian from the beginning of this regime. Mike Elston, who's been promoted to associate head coach, defensive line. And some will say, well, that's just a way to reward him. He didn't get to be the coordinator. But it's really much more than that. Yeah,
it really is. This was a focus of mine in all of this, and Brian's too. The The operational side of college football is growing exponentially. Everything you've got to do, and trying to figure out how to do it all, but allow your head coach to stay focused on leading the team is an increasing challenge. All of us in college football have added staff to help do that, administrative staff. We've grown recruiting staffs, so we've grown strength conditioning staffs, etc. But you need somebody who's got the coaching perspective, can be the right hand, doesn't have the coordinator responsibility, frankly, but can be the right hand to the head coach. And there's nobody in our program better to do that than Mike. So far from being just a title here, this is an important part of the way we try and set up the entire organization so that everybody can do the thing they do best. The coordinators can focus on their job, Brian can focus on his, Mike can do a great job with the defensive line, but add to that the administrative responsibilities that'll make us better.
And you mentioned the defensive line, and that's so important. Coach Elko, the scheme, the rover position all got so much credit, but one of the big reasons why the defense made such an improvement this year was along the defensive line, and that's what Coach Elston was working with.
Yeah, Mike's leadership of that room and the culture of that group was a huge factor in our success this year. And it speaks to his relatability to our players generally. He was the head of our recruiting effort until we asked Coach Polian to take that over. And so he's got the relationship with the guys that, A, lets him be an effective coach, but B, there'll be times in this role where he'll be the spokesperson instead of Coach Kelly, just because that's his role. And he has the relationship with the guys to be able to do that.
All right, other sports that are active right now, you have a unanimous number one team on campus right now, the Notre Dame hockey team, having a remarkable season.
Yeah, remarkable is the right word. I mean, with each win, you sort of, the historical precedents become harder and harder to find, whether within our own program, within Jeff's career, or even in college hockey generally. And so it is such a great thing. They have much bigger goals than what they're achieving during the regular season, and they're focused on that. But the consistency with which they've played and the intelligence with which they've played have really been a hallmark of this team. I'm amazed at how many of the contests have had it played out in a similar way. They never panic. They've got the way they're going to play the game, and they've been super effective.
And I guess there's a certain irony here throughout your tenure and throughout the last 3 decades since I arrived in the early 80s. There has often been talk about Notre Dame joining the Big Ten and all of the stories that went around that. This has been, for the hockey program, a perfect fit.
It has been. We very much appreciate all the Big Ten has done to help make it work and be a seamless
very welcomed.
Very seamless transition. The administration of hockey by the league is first class, and so it has been great. It's great for our fans. They are opponents they recognize and with whom we have some history. I think Big Ten hockey is poised right now to really take off. I think we're going to help that, but we've had some coaching transitions around the league. Minnesota's been a stalwart at the top of the rankings for years now, but with the transition at Michigan and Michigan State, some of the other changes, you can feel the momentum of the league building, and that's going to be great for us.
And certainly this weekend, Notre Dame hosting Wisconsin in one game and hosting them again, but at the United Center in Chicago.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic. I think it should be a great environment in the United Center. I hope it's well attended. A lot of Wisconsin fans will come down for it, and of course our Chicago fans, I'm sure, will be there in large numbers. It's a great experience for our guys. Our relationship with the Blackhawks, starting with their training here each fall, has really grown, and we love that.
Now the basketballs, unfortunately, have been bit big time by the injury bug. It hit the women's team first. Now it's hit the men's team. I know on the men's side it's just been devastating, and I know the women are scrambling and trying to hang on, but the injury situation certainly led to their loss down at Louisville.
Yeah, I wonder, I don't know who's up for the challenge of researching it, but I wonder if any school across its 2 programs in 1 year
had that many injuries.
Have had this many injuries to frontline players. It has been a remarkable challenge, and for all the success we've had, I don't know if we've ever had a year that demonstrates the brilliance of our head coaches more than this year. The things they're having to do, the fundamental changes in their approach to practice, in recovery. Coach Owens will be on the show a little bit later here, and I'm sure she'll speak to that. But I talked to Coach McGraw one day. She said, "I'm afraid to practice. we're just walking through because I can't have another kid hurt." And and you love the opportunity it creates. So especially on the guys' side, Martinez's growth this year and being
amazing,
one of the best big men in the country. DJ unfortunately got hurt, but you could see him emerging. Right, our guards have been great, really emerging. Nico, it just continues to go, and long term, our program is really, as hard as this is, it's going to benefit from the experience these men and women are getting this year.
I know Muffet keeps figuring out a way for the most part to win. They ran into a very good Louisville team, and in all the time that I've been doing men's basketball, I have never called two games that were as heartbreaking in terms of losing the game where the team gained more respect. Guys have been thrown into situations that they are not prepared for, and they have played so incredibly hard. I mean, did you ever think that Notre Dame would dominate North Carolina on the boards and then turn around and do it again against a Louisville team that was rotating three guys who were 6'10" or bigger?
Yeah, no, and I was that's the right observation, because I was just going to say that's the effort stat.
Yes.
Right? And for a program that's not known as being a great rebounding program, boy, these guys
in 2 weeks they changed everything.
They have just decided that's what we have to do. That's what we're going to do. It's a team approach to it. The discipline involved in that has been remarkable, because when you're going to do that, you can't be getting hurt on the other end when they turning in fast breaks, and we haven't done that either. So just so proud of both teams, and who knows what the return to health will be like for some of our players down the road. But regardless, I couldn't be prouder of these two programs.
Well, a little bit of good news today. Before we tape, DJ Harvey tweeted out he's going to be back, they hope, in 4 weeks. It's not cartilage, it's a bone bruise. He's still losing for 4 weeks, but it beats the alternative.
Yeah, and it's sort of representative, right? I have been present for the majority of the injuries at practice or in the game, and one's been more freakish than the other. In that case, it was a non-contact
right.
bone bruise, right?
He just came down, took a step, and fell down.
Yeah. When Michaela Vaughn went down to practice, it was the most normal move you could imagine. And
the same with Bonzie Colson. They don't know when he got hurt.
Yeah. So. And so that adds to the challenge of rolling with the punches here, but they keep coming.
Well, we'll find out from Carol Owens a little bit more about how the women have been rolling with the injuries right after this timeout on the Jack Swarbrick Show.
Billy is sold out tonight.
The anticipation is building.
We're set for the opening tip, and we are underway here in Notre Dame.
Tip, it goes to Young. Her jumper goes.
Jackie Young is going to be a star.
One word that sums up this Notre Dame team pretty well, and that is dominant.
Marina Mabry fires the three. Catherine Westfeld up over the rim and in.
That's Catherine Westfeld.
Enrique fires up the three. Got it. Outstanding.
If you're not here, you're missing it.
Our first guest is in her 18th season as a member of the Notre Dame women's basketball coaching staff and her 9th as associate head coach. Head coach Muffet McGraw first elevated Carol Owens to associate head coach prior to the 2002-2003 season. Now, if the year's math is not adding up for you, it's because Carol spent 5 seasons between 2005 and 2010 as the head coach at her alma mater, Northern Illinois, where she became just the second coach in the nearly 50-year history of that program to guide the Huskies to double-digit wins in each of her years as head coach. Owens focuses on coaching the Irish post players, 6 of whom have earned a combined 33 All-America honors during their collegiate careers. Just how good is Coach Owens? Well, Hall of Fame coach Muffet McGraw calls her the best post coach in the country. With that, we welcome Coach Owens to this week's edition of the Jack Swarbrick Show.
Coach, welcome. Thank you. Thanks for being with us. Listen, I don't think I can pass the gender test, but I have eligibility remaining if
We
I
need
can
you,
help. If
Jack.
I can help in any way. Have you ever had a year like this in all your years of coaching?
All my years never had a year where we had this many injuries.
Yeah, and
It's
it started last tournament time, and it's just continued.
it's like the flu. It's contagious. And but our kids have really responded very well to just this abnormal situation, and just been very positive about it. And the ones that are healthy, we're trying to keep healthy.
Yeah, so it's got to cause a change in your routine, approach to practice, and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Just trying to keep kids rested and healthy.
Yeah, recovery is really big. The nutrition, all those things we are really kind of watching, with a fine-tooth comb to make sure we have everything in place for them to be healthy. Of course, we can't have as long of practices as we could before, but, our practice guys are really important because now we don't have to take as many reps. And so just maintaining their stamina, not wearing them out in practice, and just really managing this time of the year because we're in conference play. So we play Thursday, Sunday, and we have to really just manage how many days we're practicing and days off, recovery, how much time they're on their feet, and all those things come into play.
Well, it's good though when you step out of conference, you bring in an easy opponent, right? You're in the toughest conference in the league, and you're facing a non-conference game with Tennessee.
We are. This is our bye week, and we play Tennessee around this time. And what Coach McGraw has really done is put us in a situation where we're playing the top teams in the country. Now we have, a injury bug going on, but it doesn't change our expectations of the individuals that we have because, our starters can play with anybody.
Yeah, although you're asking some of them to do something a little different, right? So Marina has to step in and play essentially the whole game at the point now, right?
Yeah, our three guards, our only guards, all have to share in that responsibility, and we challenge them. Everybody's got to step up and help. Even Catherine Westbell has to be available. If teams try to do different things against us defensively, she has to be available to help us bring the ball down the court and get us in offense.
Yeah, and of course, I hate to look back and think about where we'd be if Jess hadn't been declared eligible for this year. You're tutoring her all year. What are your observations on Jessica Shepard?
Jessica is a very talented young woman. She can score 30 points a game, but she's so unselfish. We tend to have to tell her to shoot more, and we need her to score more. But just very talented around the basket, very versatile. She's a post player that can face up and use her ball handling skills to get to the basket, but also she can post up. And so she brings some different, challenges to different opponents on her style of play, and obviously it helps us.
Boy, she wore out BC the other night. After halftime, there must have been a discussion about feeding the post because I think on the next 6 or 7 possessions, it went right to the post, and she was great.
We think more times than none that she's an advantage. Every time we need to establish the inside game, and she does it very well, but she's going to pass it too. But, we'd rather for her to score inside and pass it on the outside is high percentage shot. And I think she's done really well, responded really well for what we have, and we're just so lucky to have her here.
With a shorter rotation, like the injuries have necessitated, does it impact your style of play?
Well, when we sub, obviously we have Christina Nelson, and we may play she and Jessica at the same time, and so it impacts what types of offenses we would run with those two. But obviously, Jessica's comfortable being on the outside, and so if we wanted to continue to run our Princeton offense, we can continue to do that.
As you said, a bit of a break in the conference schedule with a tough Tennessee opponent coming in, but then back into a daunting conference. What are your observations on the ACC so far this year?
Well, I just read, within our statistics and also in social media, that we're the #1 conference. We have quite a few teams that are ranked: Florida State, Duke, Louisville, along with ourselves, and a couple other teams that are ranked. And if not ranked, they're pushing the top 25. And so every game is a big game. After Tennessee, we played Clemson. Last year we went to Clemson And I believe if we didn't go to overtime, it was a close, very close game. And so we have to come out and have to be ready. And this conference has really stepped up and had a lot of talented teams, and we're playing each other, but it's also prepared us for postseason.
Yeah, it certainly does that, and it's got to, although we beat up on each other a little bit, got to help the RPI to come out of a conference like that.
Number 1 RPI right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Now you had what for this program is a very unusual and untraditional experience down in Louisville. How do you move from that? What do you do as a coach?
Well, Coach McGraw does a really good job of breaking down film. I mean, we watched the offensive breakdowns that we had during that game, and also the defensive breakdowns, the things that we should have done more, obviously, and then we had our team watch it and let them observe themselves and the things that they could get better. And so we talked about that. We talked about how we need to help each other, how we need to understand every opponent's going to come after us. You know, they don't care about us having 7 players or 7 scholarship players. They're going to come and give us their best. And so we need to understand that going into a Louisville, you know, a Florida State that's coming up. We have to understand, we got to have that mentality, and we got to understand we got to fight every single possession. And I think Coach made that very clear.
This year's tournament returns to Greensboro after a year in Myrtle Beach, which was an interesting and I thought kind of a great experience. How do you guys feel about going back to Greensboro?
Well, Greensboro has been traditionally set up for ACC basketball, and so we invite that. We're looking forward to it. It's a great tournament. There's some exciting basketball that's going to be going down there, and I think the ACC overall does a great job.
We had your sport administrator, Joe Bodensteiner, on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking a little bit about the tournament and sort of the format issues associated with it, and a discussion about what to do with the regionals, where, you know, those first and second rounds tend to be very energized on the campus, and of course the final round is, but still searching a little bit on the regionals. What's your view as the best way to approach that?
I think it's still a huge challenge. I think we've done it a lot of different ways. We tried to do, you know, the way the men do it, have 8 teams at the same place, but, you know, women, we have to find the demographics that suit, you know, women's basketball. We didn't feel like that suited us, and Kentucky, I think they've had it the last 4 years, and, you know, they're looking for places to draw, and there's quite a few teams that even, you know, not major institutions, but like a South Dakota State, they're going to draw whether their team is there or not. So they should be in consideration as to be one of the regionals that continue to provide an opportunity for women's basketball. So I think there's a lot of research going on. There's not one thing that, you know, administrators and all that can come to a conclusion. I think it's a work in progress, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, one thing for sure, I know that Notre Dame will be part of that discussion no matter what the format is. Congratulations on all you and Coach McGraw and the rest of the staff for achieving this year, and good luck the rest of the way.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll be back in a minute.
We expect a great one tonight. This crowd is electrified.
Strong drive and one. He'll be at the line. Have not been able to stop the drive.
Farrell bounces it in the lane to Rex Luger. The two-handed jam.
Are you serious, Bonzi? Bonzi, are you serious? They love him at the Golden Dome.
Our next guest became the head fencing coach at Notre Dame in 2014, succeeding Janusz Bednarski after spending 8 years as a member of Bednarski's coaching staff. It took just 3 seasons as head coach for Kvaratskhelia to guide Notre Dame to its 9th fencing national championship, and the Irish have yet to lose an ACC championship dual competition. Gia first joined the Notre Dame coaching staff in 2007 to oversee the foil program. Since that time, Notre Dame has qualified the maximum of 4 foilists for NCAA championship play each year, with 7 winning NCAA championships. 5 foilists have achieved 4-time All-America status, and since first arriving at Notre Dame, Gia has won 7 Coach of the Year awards. 9 of Notre Dame's 12 NCAA qualifiers last season return this season, so there is plenty to talk about with the head Notre Dame fencing coach today.
Man, I'm exhausted just from the introduction. All those Coach of the Year awards and all those champions, congratulations, Coach.
Thank you. We have to have a great platform to be able to achieve that.
Speaking of platforms, we got you back in your venue, or nearly, after a long absence. You good? You glad to be at a Steppen Center?
You know, just for the fact, in this day and age, you don't gain this space. You usually lose it. But we, as a fencing team, winning with the national championships, few feet came with that, and we are bigger than ever before.
That's great. So, talk to me a little bit about the rhythm of the season for you, right? So, what's the fall like, and now coming into the spring?
Well, piggybacking the NCAA championship changes everything. Dynamic, the confidence, the whole thing kind of elevates to the next level. Enthusiasm. So we try to ride that wave to the real part of the season, which will start this week. In terms of preparation, we kind of adopted the motto, hungry and humbled. So we don't look at the NCAA championship title as a stepping stone at all. These teams try to prove itself from the ground zero, and they're ready to go.
Who will be new faces that will be making contributions this year?
You know, as well, we have recruited last 3 years. The starters who were the part of that team last year might not qualify. So it's open competition, and this season will determine who will be there when the final bell rings.
When you say open competition, is it as simple as facing each other in practice and deciding outcomes? How do you decide who's competing for you?
It's for fencing. It's kind of complicated. It's not just facing each other. It's not even national competition or NCAA events. It's also the World Cup events they travel and go to 4 or 5 times prior to major part of the season. So all these factors together will give us the kind of vision where we're at with the team.
Give us a few of the names to look for this year, fencers you'll be counting on.
I have to start with Francesca Russo. That's the most accomplished athlete we have on the roster, 2 times NCAA champion already. And she will be a backbone of the women's and the entire team. And Sabrina Macialis, who's been in the top 5 twice. Axel Kiefer, the accomplished athlete. And so on and on and on. But also the freshmen going to be great contributors. So we're going to have a great mix of the veteran and kind of new fencers, new faces.
Is there a weapon that's a particular strength, or is this team balanced across the weapons?
I think this will be the first time we're going to have the most balanced team, all 2 genders and the 3 weapons combined. So we're pretty confident that we could accomplish the goal, the full fight for the medals. That ultimately, so many different factors decides who's going to be hoisting the trophy, but this team could do it.
And as you say, you ride the wave of last season, but it also puts a target on you for everybody, especially as decisively as you won the tournament last year. Does that come into the psyche of preparing the team?
Talking about the last season a little bit, we struggled entire season, majorly. It was during the regular season we struggled. We barely won the ACC championships by 1 point, down by 4-2, came back and won. We had a tough time to qualify 12, and then NCAA approaches and sea parted, and we walked on the water. So we're kind of immune to everything. 9 kids are coming back. They know how to go through the hardship and difficulties and adversity. So I think we'll be ready either way.
As I was reminded during this year's ring ceremony, it's a very large squad. A lot of young people who participate in the sport and benefit from doing so. How do you manage a squad that size?
I think unsung heroes of our success and the story is our assistant coaches, and the most of the burden goes through them, give the lessons and recruiting and managing that team to be cohesive. But the culture itself around the university and the fencing program, it really consolidates the kids to go the one direction.
Are the likely rivals this year the same as they've been, the traditional powers?
Again, going through the last year, we learned that only rival we have, it's ourselves. And if we could do everything possible to make ourselves better and prepare ourselves to the right moment, there's no one else we can have to worry about. It's us.
Well, you mentioned the staff who helps prepare these young people and bring the right people to campus. Introduce us to the staff a little bit.
Incredible. If we looked at our staff as formed, different ways from the football, for example, each of them could be the best coordinators of their sort in the country, and that's without a doubt. We'll start with the associate head coach Cedric Loiseau, young coach, came from France with extensive experience in the world level and worked with the French national team. By the way, his first world championships was at South Bend in 2000. Wow. He's age 16, so he kind of knew about the campus when he arrived here 5 years ago. And Cedric, followed by Bucky Leach. It's a Hall of Fame, United States Fencing Association Hall of Fame member. Came from New York City and really brought a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge to the intangibles of the fencing. And rising star of the fencing saber side, Oleg Ochoki.
I was talking recently with our associate head coach in football, Mike Elston, whose daughter fences and is pretty passionate about doing it. Is youth fencing in the area vibrant? Is it growing at all?
Very much so. Very much so. Our coaches go and do volunteer job or just occasionally coach at the club. So club is pretty strong. So Cedric's wife is an incredible coach who manages the flow of the young fencers over there.
Well, let's hope that pipeline benefits Notre Dame down the road.
Well, it's the only way to go. It's nearby.
Yeah. Coach, thank you so much for all you're doing to represent this university and to have us compete at the very highest level. Good luck on what I hope is another championship run.
Well, we'll try. Thank you so much.
We'll be back in a minute.
Welcome back to the Jack Swarbrick Show. Houston native Chad Riley won 4 monograms and 3 All-Big East honors as a midfielder for the Notre Dame soccer team in the early 2000s, a playing career that included the first 3 seasons of Bobby Clark's head coaching career at Notre Dame. Chad then began a soccer coaching career of his own that saw him return to Notre Dame as an assistant for Coach Clark for 6 years until 2012, when Riley joined the Dartmouth College coaching staff. Coach Riley became Dartmouth's head coach in 2013 and led the Big Green to the Ivy League championship in each of the last 4 seasons. Earlier this month, Coach Chad Riley was named the 6th men's head soccer coach at Notre Dame, taking over for the retiring Bobby Clark. It is our honor to welcome Coach Riley to this week's edition of the Jack Swarbrick Show.
Welcome and welcome. Welcome to the show and welcome back to Notre Dame.
Yeah, thanks for having me tonight.
It didn't really strike me until that introduction that this was all about just maintaining the same color wardrobe, wasn't it?
Exactly.
You just got to use green no matter what.
Seamless.
So the opportunity presented itself when with Bobby's announced retirement. What attracted you back here?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I tell people the night he retired, it was actually a hard thing to think your coach wasn't going to be here. And then, I think, like I said in one of the first press releases, I think it's the combination of everything. I think it's a university I love, and I think I would always love the university even if you couldn't compete at the highest level in my profession and in my sport. But I think combining those two things makes it a tremendous opportunity for me professionally. So to combine the personal and the professional and to play in by far the most competitive and best conference in men's soccer. I think all those things combined just to make it an unbelievably exciting opportunity.
The logic for your return is obvious to our viewers and listeners, but it's also a logical return for your family, right?
It is, yeah. It was. There was more pressure on me to do a good job in the interview, I think, than many other candidates because it's my wife's hometown. She grew up in South Bend, and we lived here together. We were married for a few years before we headed out to Hanover. But yeah, it's as a coach, you never think all of those things can come together, and to have those things come together was a pretty special thing for our family.
When did the coaching bug bite you?
Yeah, probably earlier than a lot of people. I think I was telling someone earlier about the '94 World Cup was kind of when soccer kind of took over my life, and I thought I wanted to play or coach. I started thinking about coaching. I don't know why. Maybe I knew I wasn't going to be as good as I wanted to be to play for too long, but I started thinking, and then my first, to be honest, when I started playing for Bobby, I think it just I saw it as more than just a job or something that would be fun from the sporting side, that it could be this kind of vocation to help educate. And I think once I saw all of that, and then I think the opportunity to coach at a high level, and then to be impactful on young people's lives, I think that's when it really hit me when I was a student here, to be honest. And then I got into it pretty quickly after I graduated.
You've seen this program from every perspective: player, assistant coach, now head coach. How does that help you attract young people to the program?
Yeah, I think, it's one of those abilities that maybe when I was an assistant coach, I took for granted, the ability to effectively articulate what Notre Dame is and what the opportunities are and just what life can be like on campus. So I think, that will help in kind of the recruiting to be very effective, to know what the place is all about. And then I think I just had my first meeting with the team, which was a really enjoyable and special time, because I think it's, it builds that sort of level of trust that sometimes you can't have if you're a total outsider. So I think, those two pieces of it help me maybe quicken the impact that I can have on the program. And then I think it lets me know some of the areas that are always challenges that we need to continue to strive to make better. Maybe I can see those things a little bit quicker. And then I think one of the benefits of being away for a few years is I also have a little bit of an outsider's perspective on, it's a different league than when I coached here. There's different opportunities and challenges around that I think hopefully I can bring a little bit of a new perspective to as well.
I'm not asking you to betray any locker room secrets, but how do you approach that first meeting with a new team?
Yeah, I think, we had a chance to have the conference call, and I think something, I put a lot of thought into, how we embrace this time of transition, because I think it can also be a time of celebration because you're celebrating someone, but then it's this, every time there's this transition, there's opportunities that present itself, and I think that's the biggest message to the team is, here's an opportunity. You hope to get to the point where you have a team and young people that take every day as a new opportunity, but when you have a marker like this and a coaching change, that here's this opportunity. And I think, in a lot of ways I went through what at least the freshmen are, because Coach Clark came in my middle of my freshman year, and so I remember how that can be just this kind of recharging time, just to embrace it and to say, kind of all hands on deck, and how strong can we be together as a group to chase our goals.
You in the rhythm of things, you come in after the competitive season's over and national champion's been crowned. How do you use the spring? There are matches to be played, but how do you use the spring to set up the fall?
Yeah, I think right now, especially in this transition, I think it's a good question. The next, first couple weeks will be getting to know what they're like as people, as players, at strengths and weaknesses, where we can help them. And then I think after the first couple weeks in kind of smaller functional groups, bring in maybe the little bit of tweaks to the way we'll compete and the way we'll play, in smaller groups. And then I think once the games, that's when you start developing kind of the more game approach. How are we going to tactically set ourselves up for certain games? And then you're still evaluating. I think that's what's exciting, to have the spring and such good games lined up, capped with the Mexican U20 national team coming in. I think you get to kind of see where everyone is, and you get to see opportunities of how do people grow. I think that's one of the things we really want to do, is be a place that obviously grows them as people, as students, but also as soccer players. How can we grow them through this period? So I think that's kind of the phases we see it falling into right now.
How would you describe the style of play you tend toward as a coach?
Yeah, I think a lot of the principles will be similar to the guys. I think we want to be skillful, fast, and purposeful. Those are the things that we want. So whether it's times when we have the ball and we're in possession and controlling the game with the ball, we want to be effective. But then there's going to be times in games and even moments in games where we don't have the ball, but when that ball turns over, are we the team that transitions quicker and effectively? So I think those components certainly make it exciting to play, but also make it effective and exciting to watch as well.
How has the game changed since you played it?
I just think every year the level overall gets better. I think one of our teams will certainly try to knock off their pedestal right now. Has shown that you can put some good seasons together, but I think just when I was playing, maybe there's 20 good teams. Now that's maybe up to 30, 40 teams that are really of a high standard. I think there's just more information about analytics and statistics out there. So I think the packages of your sort of style or system of play are becoming more nuanced and more more people are having that information, so there's more information out there. But I think generally just the overall level and professionalism of the college soccer sport is gone up a notch.
Now, in the course of interviewing you and for the position, I ran across a fact I found just absolutely fascinating. One of your professors, when you were here, is our current university president.
It was, yeah, he was. I actually had the good fortune to run into him today and caught up, and we were trying to decide what year it was. I think I was a junior, so it was a good class on St. Augustine and mainly the Confessions. So yeah, he was excited to have a theology major as one of his coaches.
I won't press you for details, but I assume you did okay in the
I
course.
did, yeah. He's tough, but I think I did well enough.
I'm about to head to the NCAA meetings as we're taping this show, and we don't seem to have any conference or NCAA meetings these days where the topic of what the soccer season should look like doesn't come up. On the debate of year-round versus the current format, where do you stand?
Yeah, I'm a little bit more in the can we evolve and grow what we have. I do think the biggest benefit to the model of the split season would be reducing the number of midweek games. But I think we can accomplish that by a little bit earlier of a start in August, and then maybe pushing our championship a little bit further into December. And then I think really where the coaches, if the goal is student welfare and getting rid of some of the midweek games and giving them more time for their academics, I think we've got to take a hard look at conference tournaments and see how we reduce those, because that's really what ends up shrinking the season. And then I think I'm a big component of developing in the non-championship season, where of course you want to win everything, but I think it's not the be-all end-all. You want to develop, and I think it's nice as an 18 to 22-year-old to have that time to kind of grow your game. And if we went to the split season, I feel that would all but get rid of that time of the kind of development model.
Another part of the debate that surfaces from time to time is the notion of a fixed championship site, like women have with softball and baseball has in Omaha. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. I don't know if we could get it to work the same way, and I think soccer's too maybe broad in the country that I think we could get to where we have a couple of different sites, and maybe that would help planning purposes. But I think to me, whether there's a kind of West Coast, middle of the country, and South hopefully, and kind of Southeast, I think would make a lot of sense, and get some sort of cycle for that would probably make the most sense. But I think if someone could prove that could put on a good event year in, year out, I think it would be great for our game as well.
One of the tasks that, of course, hit you right out of the box is recruiting. What are you looking for, and how are you assessing the talent you were trying to bring to Notre Dame?
Yeah, I think for Notre Dame, it's all about excellence. You want the best players. I think you want the best players or the best students who want to be here, and I think that's what I'm getting a handle on right now. I think it's one of the neat things about my transition is I got a good compatriot helping me with the transition, so helping me with some of the more specific needs of positionally. I think it looks like we'll graduate a lot of our kind of spine of our team, so the center part, goalkeeper, center back, center midfielder and striker. So I think, looking into our classes, that'll be the focus for the short term, and then building around there. But I think you want that, and character-wise, you want them to be strong, and you want them to have a real passion to be here. I think it's being away even for 6 years has helped me even remember what a gift this place could be for young people in their lives, and I think that's a big piece of it. And then I think we want to be the best, so we want to bring in the best who have a kind of growth mindset to get better.
What's the reaction been like among your former teammates when they heard the news?
Yeah, it's been really, really cool. I didn't expect it completely. I knew, people I keep in touch with would be excited, but I've just recently got a lot of texts from the seniors who were seniors when I was a freshman, and so that was really neat. And then just even, I've been overwhelmed with people through the years, and so I thought that was, as excited as I was for myself and my family, just the excitement that I think people had that, one of their own was kind of coming back was unexpected, but really appreciated.
Well, I have no doubt that you will represent the proud legacy of this program well. We wish you the best of luck.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, and we'll be back in a minute.
Welcome back to the Jack Swarbrick Show. About a minute to wrap up. You mentioned the NCAA convention earlier in the show. It's in Indianapolis. You will be there. What's on the agenda?
Well, it's an interesting year because we've done a lot in recent years, and so part of this is sort of absorbing that. Player health and safety remains at the top of the agenda. Some focus on insurance issues and making sure that we are providing for the safety of our athletes. Sort of reflecting on the first year of time management will be part of this. It's not the largest agenda, but it's important that we gather as a conference at it. We gather as the autonomy schools together too. It's one of the few times where you can really discuss the issues of the day.
And I know you love it when it's in Indianapolis. You do have a home here in South Bend now, but you still have one down there. Nice to sleep in your own bed as opposed to a hotel room.
Kept one in both places, and I do know the restaurants.
All right, thanks, Jack. That'll do it for this week's edition of the Jack Swarbrick Show. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening, and go Irish.
Go Irish.